Hello friends, my name is Tenelin, and we're here to check out the preliminary patch notes for specifically the Crafter and Gatherer sections for 7.0 Dawntrail's release. These did just come out this morning, so if you haven't had a chance to read them, go ahead and check out in the description for the link. Now there are a couple of updates that I think could be very interesting, and potentially shake up a few things about the normal route of what we do in an expansion, but overall these notes are pretty much what we expected. There is a particular section that I'm sure a lot of you are going to be wondering about that we'll talk about at the end. But first, let's start off with something new. The bait and tackle window will now have an available swim bait, which is related to the level 91 fisher action, Spareful Hand. Now, this is very interesting. My first thought, is this going to be a spearfishing bait? It could be a new type of bait chumming method used with the Spareful Hand skill. Or it could be some way of making a little bit more complexity to big or legendary fish, giving them a double bait requirement. Either way, this is a very interesting thing that I didn't expect, so I am very excited to see what happens with this. Speaking of fishing though, we do have some bonus spirit bonding for these fish, the big and legendary specifically. It's a cool change, and I hope that it gives a decent chunk of spirit bonding, because it would just be an additional motivator to do these fish. Next up, no more crying when you misclick and waste a bunch of GP. When I was making my ethereal reduction video just the other day, I had this problem happen a couple of times. It was just silly misclicks that I was doing. Solid reasons and ageless words can no longer be used when you're at maximum integrity. This is a great change. It'll make it so you don't accidentally click them. The problem that I had when I was first opening up the menus is sometimes instead of clicking scrutiny, I was clicking ageless words and just wasting 300 GP. As well, the Wise to the World procs will no longer let you use them if you have max integrity, so you can't make mistakes when you get that proc if you've used it only after 1 integrity. I think this is a great quality of life change, and I'm very happy. There's been some changes to collectibles. The first one is the experience points rewarded when delivering collectibles will be standardized per item. The amount received no longer reduced at lower levels. I'm not really sure what this means. Maybe I'm just not understanding it. But it does sound like just overall this should be a buff. As long as I'm assuming they're going to put the experience to the level that it's always at its highest tier, maybe, or maybe even the mid tier. But overall, it does sound like it's a buff, but I don't quite understand what it means. I'll have to see that when it comes out. The second one, though, the experience points rewarded when using a class at level 90 or above to deliver collectibles that are 90 or below has been capped to 1,000. This is exactly what we assumed would happen. This is normal, and that's why I said don't stock up on collectibles if you're trying to use them to level. The only reason to stock up on collectibles is for purple scripts when Dawntrail comes out. Now, this is the integrity change. They showed this off at another live letter, but I think this is just a really nice change. It just makes it so you don't have to look at the health bar of the node anymore. The integrity will now be on the gathering menu. A minor quality of life change, but a fantastic one. Now, we can't forget to give Soken some love. He's very excited about this next change. New music, sound effects, and voices have been added, but specifically, sound effects will now play when touching certain plants. This one might not be gathering related in particular, but I do think the gatherers are probably going to notice this because we're going to be out in the fields, the areas that new plants will be, and we'll probably hear some new sound effects related to them. So I have to give Soken some love. I saw him tweet about this one, how excited he is for this change, so. This one is one that's going to put a lot of worry on people. The experience points rewarded when using a class at level 90 or above to complete a Levequest with a level requirement below 90 have been capped at 1,000. Now this one is weird. The Japanese patch note for this specifically only talks about fishers and crafters. This patch note is apparently in every single expansion, and this one usually never applies to miner and botanist, which is why we can do something like get 8 Levequests for each of those jobs beforehand to turn them in after the expansion. As far as I understand, everything should still be as normal, but of course, things can change with an expansion and we don't know for certain. In my opinion, it's still worth getting your 8 Levequests for botanist and for miner before the patch comes out. The worst that happens is you waste a little bit of time doing them and you don't get any experience. It's not like they require anything other than time. For me personally, I'm not worried about this. This is a standard patch note, and I think it's just a weird translation issue when they put it into the English. One of the new things that's coming out is the Wachumeqimeqi Deliveries. I'm very excited to see these. This one seems like an interesting little quest line where you're going to have 5 different shopkeepers that you're helping out. as seen in this picture. They'll be broken down into these categories based on Disciple of Land and Disciple of Hand, each of them having a group of jobs that are going to be related to each of them. The one that I think is very interesting is the Miner and Botanist is the Apothecary shop. I am very excited to do these quests. I think it'll be a great way to get some script and experience early in the expansion. I do plan on making additional videos of these when they're out, so if you would like to see them, please subscribe for any future videos on that or anything else Final Fantasy XIV related. A nice little thing to see is that grade 8 dark matter will be used to repair all of our gear from 91 to 100, meaning that they're not going to put a new one out for this specifically, so we can stock up on grade 8 dark matter early. This is for people who love to repair their gear and others. Now, the note that probably most of you are here for. Spiritbond gained when gathering will now be based on gear's equipping level rather than its item level. Now, this one makes me a little nervous because it does change up a couple of things that we are using specifically in my guild making guide for early gathering, where you can get a lot of materia for gatherers very quickly. We don't know anything so far about what exactly this means, so everything that I'm going to be saying is pure speculation. This is what my guess as to what this is going to mean. It's going to be a nerf to the quick materia farming method in the early expansion, but will be a buff to overall spirit bonding for the duration of the entire expansion. For those that don't understand, I'm going to explain how current spirit bonding works. If you use a lower item level piece of gear and gather a higher item level node, you are rewarded with increased spirit bonding the further the gap between those two items is. Now, just speculating off of how I read this patch, it does sound like that's no longer going to be the case. It will now be a standard amount of Spirit Bond across all nodes at a certain level. For example, any level 100 node using level 100 gear, no matter the item level of the node or the item, will give the same amount of Spirit Bonding. Now, this is most likely an overall buff to gathering later down the line during the expansion, but will make getting new materia a little bit slower at the start. Now, again, this is just me speculating. There's also a chance that overall they just increase the amount of average spirit bonding per node, and it's an even better change, and we just see a greater amount of spirit bonding across the board. I don't think it's a bad thing, and honestly will probably make spirit bonding a prolonged, decent method of making some extra gil or materia if this is how it works. It might even make the materia market go a little crazier at the start of expansion if we do have a lower flux of new materia coming in. Might make the market board prices go up, and for anybody that's looking to profit off of it, it might be even better guild maker than it was before. Now we'll just have to wait and see though to know for certain. Once people start getting their gathering classes to level 100 and start doing the timed nodes, we'll really get a better idea of what we're looking at. But what do you think about these preliminary expansion notes? Let me know in the comments. Let's get some theories going on maybe other things that you guys think that spirit bonding changes would be. And since we got some extra downtime, let's just talk about it into the new patch releases. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in Dawntrail.